where after going on the same 1-hour call, somewhat surprisingly, it's the folding phones that actually do 1 point better. Here in messaging, we have our robots texting back and forth with our automated chatbot. You'll notice that the Fold 7 is using its outer display, which, while it's now bigger and more usable than ever, it also means it'll likely consume more power than ever. But at least after an hour in messaging, it doesn't look like it's a problem, with the Fold 7 still going toe-to-toe with the S25 Ultra. But it might be a different story here in email though, where this time we have the Fold 7 opened up, where that big 8-inch screen will likely suck up significantly more power. Now it's worth noting that we have the displays on each phone calibrated to the same 200 nits of brightness, so everything is going to be nice and fair as we scroll through the same set of emails. Where 60 minutes later, yeah, the Fold 7 does the worst. No surprise there, but what is surprising is the Flip 7 is actually ahead of the pack. I mean, we are 3 hours into the test at this point, so being in first place despite having only a 4300 mAh battery is pretty impressive. Of course, things might change here in the browser test, where we'll finally get to see how that Exynos chip performs under load, with us launching random pages every 30 seconds from the same set of websites, where 1 hour later, no, the Flip is still holding its own. The S25 Ultra did technically do 1 point better, but in terms of just pure estimated milliamp hour usage, the Flip 7 was actually the most efficient, which is something you can't say about the Fold 7, where its bigger screen is clearly taking a toll on it. And that will likely only continue here in Instagram, where our robots are scrolling through the feed just like you would in real life. Where once again, the Fold 7 is the least efficient. The S25 Edge is only doing 3 points better than it at this point with its super small battery, while the Flip 7 and S25 Ultra are all tied up for first place. Now, I am curious to see how that Exynos chip in the Flip 7 will hold up here in standby, which is an area where Exynos chips haven't always been known for doing well in. But after 16 hours, it's not that bad. It's still not quite Snapdragon level, with the Flip technically being the least efficient in terms of pure milliamp hour usage, causing it to fall 2 points behind the S25 Ultra, which, hey, 21 hours into this test is still really impressive. I was honestly expecting the Flip to be closer to the S25 Edge at this point, but clearly the Flip 7 can perform, with it matching the S25 Ultra's 8-point drop once again after an hour of binging phone buff. Unfortunately though, the same can't be said about the Fold 7, with it taking a major hit there, dropping by a whopping 13 points, which I don't think could be explained just by the bigger display alone. I think there's something else going on here, since those YouTube videos weren't even taking up the Fold's entire display like it is here in Alto's Adventure, where after an hour of gameplay, the S25 Ultra does the best with only an 8-point drop, the Flip 7 and its Exynos chip does the second best with a 10-point drop, while the S25 Edge and the Fold 7 see an 11 and 13-point drop respectively. Now, the good news for the Fold 7 is we have switched back to using its outer display here, so it should stop the bleeding a bit here in Maps, where after an hour of simulating navigation with the GPS and the compass turned on, that's pretty much what happens, with it matching the Flip 7 exactly. But it's this Spotify test that I've actually been waiting for, since, as I was alluding to earlier, I think something else is hurting the Fold's battery life, and I think that might be the speakers. We calibrate the speakers on each phone to the nearest decibel count, and what we found in our trials of this phone is every time the speakers were actively being used, like in YouTube, Altos, and now in Spotify, the Fold 7 did significantly worse, with it draining by 12 points this time compared to the 9-point drop on the Flip despite using its smaller outer display. So I think Samsung had to go with a different speaker setup this year because they also just don't sound as good as the Fold 6 did, meaning heading into Snapchats, things aren't really looking good for the Fold 7. It's actually tracking worse than the Fold 6 at this point, and I don't even know if it's gonna make it to App Cycle like the Fold 6 did, since this Snapchat test is super intensive, where, 52 minutes into it, the Fold 7 gives out, at which point the S25 Edge is at 4%, the Flip 7 is at 16%, and the S25 Ultra is sitting at a healthy 23%. So quite a big difference, maybe not as much compared to the S25 Edge, which only dies 9 minutes later, but compared to the Flip 7, It's a pretty big delta. And maybe more importantly, it's a noticeable step back from last year's Fold 6, which actually made it 25 minutes into this app cycle test, or a full 33 minutes longer than the Fold 7. And we ran multiple trials, and this result was consistent. So not the best news for the Fold series, but for the Flip, it is excellent, with the Flip not only lasting a full hour in app cycle, but going for 1 hour and 9 minutes before dying, while the mighty S25 Ultra only has 7% left to go. So there you have it. The S25 Ultra is clearly Samsung's best when it comes to battery life. That's not really a surprise, with it lasting 1 hour and 50 minutes into app cycle, while the Flip 7 is the second best. And then when it comes to the S25 Edge and the Fold 7, well, battery life is just gonna be a trade-off you're gonna have to make if you either want a crazy thin body or a big old tablet that can fit in your